Here's some more stories that I like from this comedy on the road. First one's by Billy Martin. In 1989, I played a comedy caravan club in Florida. On this particular week, accommodations meant a condo, an apartment where headlining and middle acts would cohabit and share in creative exchange. It was also a place where the middle act and the headliner bonded over the mutual objective of making the opening act's life a living hell. I was the middle act. Headlining was a comedy duo from the Midwest, whom I'll call Del and Mel. Their hook was that one was really, really fat, and the other one was really, really, really fat. Get it? Del and Mel would be introduced as a comedy team, one fat, one skinny. And then Del, the smaller of the two, would take the stage, with the audience naturally presuming he was the fat one. Del would explain, "Oh no, you ain't seen fat." And with that, ominous music would blare through the showroom, and Del would put out two flashlights like an airline employee working the tarmac. He would wave the two beacons to guide his 400 plus pound partner Mel down the center aisle and onto the stage. It was actually quite a spectacle and quite funny. Back at the condo, Del and Mel took a liking to me and missed no opportunity to point out that I was one funny motherfucker offstage. They would both laugh and laugh until one of them would slip into a coughing fit. Both men were so big that they had to sleep upright in chairs, not unlike many of my audiences. Also, they both snored so loudly that 3 rooms away I could barely hear myself masturbate. Oh, that's nice. Worst of all, both Del and Mel had sleep apnea. Their snoring would rattle the walls, leaving me longing for the quiet of, say, a NASCAR event. Mid-snore, their throats would close off, and they'd simply stop breathing for what seemed like an eternity. There I'd lie in the darkness, contemplating the awful ramifications. What if one of these guys died? What if he suffocated in his sleep? Would the show go on tomorrow night? Would the surviving Del and Mel member go on without his recently deceased partner? Or would he withdraw from the gig altogether? And in that case, would the owner bring in a new headline act, and would he bump me up to headliner? I had no problem hearing my mind masturbate. Oh, and the condo had no toilet paper. No toilet paper, but hundreds and hundreds of clean, new towels wrapped neatly in bundles with white string, acquired no doubt from some unsuspecting motel or linen truck. The towels were stacked in the closets, in the upstairs hallway, and in the bathroom. It didn't take long before Del and Mel were using them for all manner of purposes. I believe it was Saturday afternoon when I was headed into the bathroom, only to be met by Mel, the bigger one, who was on his way out, naked, lovely. As much as that sounds like a gross exaggeration, the man was so huge that at first I didn't see him. Honestly, his hulking brownness filled my peripheral vision so completely that for the briefest second I just thought the door was closed. I was just about nose to chest with his flesh mountain when I realized he was no door, and that certainly was no doorknob. I stepped aside, aided, I believe, by Mel's fingertips pushing against my chest. As I began to enter the bathroom, and he began to saunter coolly away, I just couldn't help myself. I had to take a glimpse of the rear view. In my defense, something like that is like an accident on the highway. As much as you know you shouldn't look, as much as you resolve you're not going to look, there's something involuntary that takes over, something much bigger than the human will, and you take a peek. I took a peek, and that's when I saw it. A white towel hanging from Mel's backside. Yes, like a terry cloth tail. It looked like he'd sat on someone who was trying to surrender. Or like he was some sort of towel dispenser. Either way, I was faced with a dilemma. What to do? What was the proper etiquette here? Do I say nothing, trusting that Mel will discover the towel on his own? Do I speak up? Nonchalantly say, "Yo, Mel, my man, you got a towel on your ass?" I opted for a third, more thoughtful choice. I would just, oh so quietly, step on the end of the towel, allowing Mel to walk away from it with no one the wiser, saving the man his dignity. Or so I thought. The towel was wedged up there a lot further than I had anticipated, and instead of just quietly dropping to the floor, it kind of jerked out of his rump. Mel, feeling something going on up inside his ass, wheeled around to find me wincing sheepishly directly behind him. This giant nude man's eyes burned with anger, and his ham-sized fist began to clench. Forget my trip to the bathroom. I was peeing then and there. But then a broad smile swept across Mel's face, followed by a deep, hearty laugh that made his bare belly bounce. He had waited for me. This man, after his shower, had decided to stuff a towel in his ass and then wait there naked until I came into the hallway just to see how I would react. That was funny, and that was being on the road. Good one, Mel. There's a couple shorties. Bob Zaney. I was on stage talking to this woman in the audience who said she just got engaged, so I said, "When did you know he was the one?" She said, "When the stick turned blue." And Nick Hines says, "My first row gig, I asked the audience if anyone was in an angry relationship. One guy said, 'I am.' Then his wife hit him across the face and he fell off his chair. Then she tried to blame me. It was a bad night for that guy, and he didn't make the $25 I made." Okay, here's a cute one. This is by Tom Stern. I managed Mark Schiff for a brief time in the early 80s. At that point, I was an inveterate pot smoker, a white Rastafarian with a trust fund. I never made him any money, or did anything else that a manager should do, except write with him and tell him he was a genius. About a week before Mark was going to do the Letterman show, he said to Jerry Seinfeld, "Tom's a great guy. He's really funny. I really like him. But he smokes pot 24 hours a day, and he doesn't have an answering machine. Do you think he's a good manager?" Jerry said, "You need to fire him. Make it fast." Mark called me in the Bahamas, where I was vacationing from not working, to announce that my income of zero would be maintained, but not by working with him. We remained friends, and nothing changed because I kept smoking pot and helping him with his act. I just couldn't call myself his manager. A few days later, he said to me, "I've got a gig at the Playboy Club. Do you want to come?" I said, "Sure." "Look, just this one last time, will you tell them I'm your manager, because I'll probably be able to get some free food." So for old time's sake, we got there and Mark introduced me as his manager. I proceeded to order 5 entrees. Mark went in front of the whole bunch of accountants who I had assumed were at the Playboy Club for blue comedy and near-naked women, but what they got was Mark Schiff talking about his childhood. Mark was bombing in a way that's hard to describe. It's not only that the audience wasn't laughing, but that you could see his whole world crumbling. It's not just that he was sweating. He looked like a guy having a nervous breakdown. After about 10 minutes of absolute death, Mark said to the audience, "Does anybody here know a joke?" Somebody in the audience said, "Yeah, I do." So Mark went running into the audience, held the microphone out, and the guy told a joke, getting a gigantic laugh. Mark said, "Anybody else?" This guy yelled, "Yeah." So he told a joke and got a huge laugh. Now the audience was in a better mood. They'd actually had some laughs, and they really, really liked Mark because there's something about the humility and the way he's dealt with the situation. They applauded him as he got back on stage. I was thinking, all right, he's turned it around. But when he went back into his act, instant death. 5 minutes of more death. He couldn't take it anymore. He said, "Thank you and good night," and walked off stage. I was eating my pasta across the room. I heard Mark talking to the owner, who definitely looked like he gently rolled a couple of bodies into car trunks. He was giving Mark a very stern expression and gesturing with his hands. I knew Mark well enough to see that he was getting defensive and very agitated. Through the din of the bar, I could hear Mark say from 100 feet away, "Well then, talk to my manager." I literally stopped in mid-bite, with a huge slew of pasta hanging from my chin as I stared straight ahead. Mark motioned to me and I came over. The owner said, "I don't understand your client. I'm not paying him. That's the worst act I've ever seen." To which I said, "I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it. Mark is a unique performer. He's not for everyone." He said, "What was he doing up there? He got the audience to tell jokes?" "Well, that's what's unique about Mark. He shows the audience how funny they are." He said, "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. What happened in Buffalo? I heard he was great. That's why I hired him." I said the people in Buffalo were the funniest audience Mark had ever worked in front of. The guy was not buying it. "I think you're full of crap." I was full of food and confident, so I said, "You can think what you like. Mark is a unique performance artist. Pay him his $1,200. Finally, the guy paid up. Mark still didn't pay me a commission, and he dressed me down for telling the owner that Buffalo was the funniest audience ever. Good stuff.